Hello, Western Civilization 105 class. Welcome to the last week of teaching before next week's final. I'm going to give a separate announcement later on to help you focus and prepare for the final. But right now, for this last week of instruction, I just wanted to go over some of what we covered, and then I really wanted you to listen to me say a few things before you start watching the video. Some of you may already have for this week, but there's a few important reasons why I want you to get a little better understanding of where I'm coming from on why I posted what I'm posting. So, excuse me. It's been a busy week for me. Crazy. I know all of you. I just got in and I'm like kind of frazzled. My last computer was destroyed and I got a new one here. The video's better, I think you'll notice, than what we had that I've been having before. But anyways, okay, so Cold War. I saw your discussions. Most of you looked really solid on understanding. We talked about the link of the war on terror and to the Cold War. Also, a lot of you covered Afghanistan. Less of you covered some of the article link that I had on Indonesia. Indonesia is a very important one that is often overlooked, and it deals with the CIA deciding that Islamic fundamentalism in Indonesia was preferable to the government that was more aligned with the Soviet Union. And of course, again, later on, the United States was going to declare this war on terror on Islamic extremist groups, and were actually the funders of them originally. And this is something, by the way, that happens in war. I mean, why did Churchill and Roosevelt and Stalin work together? Think about this. Stalin, communist Stalin, smoking cigars, drinking hard liquor with Churchill and FDR in the White House, working together to defeat the Nazis. Because alliances in war come out of different opposing interests. And this is something I want you to always think about. And it can make a lot of states and their ideologies look hypocritical to people when you are talking about a moral argument. When you're talking about a strategic argument, then they start to make more sense, even if we disagree with them, okay? So think about that in terms of like what we're talking about. So I personally find moral problems with a lot of things in this world. But I think as an instructor, I can also step back and say, okay, but I can also see how in a chess game world of people in power, I can see why something that doesn't seem to make sense is being made unless you think about it strategically. And then all of a sudden it makes sense. But on a moral level, it seems very contradictory. So also, for example, you saw the documentary on life under communism in East Germany, and you saw the people under an authoritarian state. What a lot of people don't know, and I did sort of cover some of this early on, but it's probably overlooked. Spain had Franco's regime, an authoritarian anti-communist state that was a dictatorship and tortured people up into the 70s. Portugal, same thing. Salazar started his regime, and then I forget the last ruler, but I think it was 73 was when dictatorship finally ended in Western Europe and Portugal under an anti-communist. So the United States, sometimes maybe it's not the dictatorship aspect that they're bothered by. It's the interests. Was it the nature of communism, or was it the interest of Russia or the Soviet sphere versus the United States and Western Europe? You know, these are all the things that we're not going to finish right now, but I'm hoping that as you looked into these and as I look at your discussions, that you think about those things, those aspects brought into the history that you study. Okay, so moving on from that. Every semester, I'm always trying to figure out how to end this class for Western Civ 105 because I want it to be the most relevant that I think is a topic happening within the Western world. And just a few years ago, it was all about Russia and the Ukraine and Russian spheres of influence and NATO. And I focus more on that for obvious reasons, because when Russia invaded Ukraine, this was a huge event and still is. in terms of the development of Western civilization and to the areas in which we're going, right? Especially in the post Cold War. Now, the Israel-Palestine conflict is my expertise. It's been for decades. And to be honest, I could rarely get anybody to have a conversation with me about it. I've even had partners, girlfriends in the past that I don't even think that they knew that I knew that much about it. We never had a conversation about it. They weren't that interested. I'd go to dinner parties. People would say, "What are you researching?" Oh, I would tell them, oh, people didn't really want to take interest. Or they were so interested that they had an opinion that if I didn't agree with them right away, it was like we were going to, it's like really intense. So, after reading over 20 books on the subject from a lot of wide range of different perspectives, going to synagogue, watching a presentation on this, going to churches, going to watching debates at colleges between both sides and all this kind of stuff, I have developed a lot of my own opinions, and I've done a lot of research at the university level. My mentor is a Jewish man who went to Israel and he saw how Palestinians were treated, and he wasn't happy about it. And he did a lot of research, and he informed me in a certain way. So I was at first very uncomfortable with hearing his narrative because it was so opposite of what I was getting information about. And then I just kept doing the research, and I came up to the conclusions that I did. Now, look, I try not to be too biased on certain things. I try to create more nuance. In this case, I've just seen a lot of bad history. So we can have different perspectives that I can't change. I'm not out to change your moral system. But as your history instructor, I can still clean up history. And there's a lot of bad history that I'm trying to clean up. And you're going to say, well, you're being biased to what you're doing, Mr. Pollack. Well, yeah, well, okay. So I'm going to address that. Before I address that, though, I want to say one thing. Sorry. I'm not into identity politics. I'm not into this idea of making people hate each other. My own background is pretty diverse. My child's background is very diverse. And I love Judaism and Christianity and Islam. I love to study those three religions. I'm interested in Western civilization. I'm interested in civilizations. I'm interested in the world. And I have my own ultimate reality set of thoughts that are not relevant right here. But the thing is, I'm not interested in creating division with people. But okay, so having said that, look, I have a lot of German in me. I can still make a criticism of Nazism and what happened in World War II. Right? And it's not considered bad history if we say that we're against anti-Semitism and the Holocaust. No, I don't think so at all. Now, I know there's other scholars that have tried to make histories that would be counter to the Holocaust. And they're scholars. I think that the consensus view stands. So I agree that it existed and it was bad. Okay, so I think that the research that has happened now by the majority of scholars and other credible sources clearly demonstrate that there is a genocide that's been taking place in Gaza. There is an apartheid state. You can watch videos of what the settlers are doing in the West Bank. You can watch all of this actually on your phone, but it's beyond that. So there's information that we have out there that is pretty solid. But now, people have their different opinions about what's justifiable to respond. Who gets to have land over somebody else? Why does somebody get to have more right to land than somebody else? This is the whole American question, right? I mean, we kicked out the natives, and we still have reservations. Other cultures do the same thing. There's been ethnic transfers, all different parts of the world. I have my own value system, but I'm not here to push a politics on you because you're going to have that. As your instructor, I try not to do that. But I'm going to push quality history. Now look, I'll give you an example really briefly. There was somebody who was always trying to debate. And I would have this discussion in college with a friend, and he referred to a book called From Time Immemorial by Joan Peters. And it was a book that tried to make it sound like Palestinians don't exist, and it really made Palestinians look bad, and it lifted up the other narrative. Well, some scholars got in and tackled this, and one guy who called himself a forensic scholar looked at the footnotes and discovered that there was actually forged documents on what was being put in there. Interestingly enough, while I used to see that book being used all the time, it's no longer brought up in conversation for the most part, because it's been universally understood that it's fake news. Excuse me. Now, I've seen some bad scholarship on the other side as well. You know, you have people trying to say that the Jews are not really Jews, they're Khazarian people, and then you have people saying Palestinians don't really exist and all this kind of stuff. Again, I'm staying away from all that. Okay? We're focusing on this history at hand. Now, my sources are, some are left and some are not. It's very hard to find neutral sources. So I found ones that I thought lined up with all of the information that I've studied best and can get you to at least have this understanding about how the world sees this and also what's happening internally. Now, before I leave, I just want to say this as well. The liberals and conservatives have generally been pro-Israel. And the left has been more the one that has often been more critical. And I'm talking about the left, to people to the left of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, by the way, is also a Zionist, and he lived in Israel on a kibbutz. But he's very critical of the treatment of Palestinians. He's kind of an in-between this discussion kind of guy. Okay, so he hates Hamas. He's pro-Israel existing, but he calls it a genocide. He calls it ethnic cleansing in Gaza. And so, but he is a Jewish man who is a Zionist and who's lived in Israel. Okay, then you have some more hardliners. Now you have Jewish Voice for Peace, who are anti-Zionist Jews. The conservative movement, evangelicals, tend to be very pro-Israel, but that's breaking up. There is a split, and it's for the first time I've seen ever. Tucker Carlson is now anti-Israel. Candace Owens, #1 podcaster, she's critical of Israel. Nick Fuentes, to the right of Trump, and what he calls America First, but he talks about organized Jewry. So he's actually criticizing Jews, more like in the anti-Semitic line. So we're seeing a shift because of the war and the war that's happening and the way that it's going on in Gaza and what's happening in with Iran and Syria and Lebanon. It's splitting up American politics in very unpredictable ways, the ways that I did not expect to see before. So what I'm hoping all of you do as you watch this is that I'd like you to have the same values that I do, but that's not what I'm trying to promote. I want you to understand this conflict better, understand the different perspectives and what's at stake. I predict that in this next few years, this will be more of a dividing line. This will be more of a topic than even what we would have ever expected. And I could go on and on of all my theories about that and why. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to say. I do expect, I'm not grading anybody based on you agreeing with me on anything, but you need to spend the time on the sources. I don't want to see anybody just cursory reading over something. No name calling. I want you to pretend, I want you to be scholarly about your approach. What is the history? I can't debate with we're not debating on value systems, but we can debate about actual history, okay? So just please keep that in mind. And if you have anything that you want to address to me personally about that, I'm more than happy to talk about that, in private, and we can be respectable and, hopefully just continue to educate ourselves and grow. So that's all I have to say on that. And like I said, we'll be in touch. Hang in there. It's hard to keep motivated the last week of work. And I want you guys all to just hang in there. You did a great job being this far. And we'll talk to you soon.